I want to explain the value of seeing a naturopathic doctor. One is that time. We spend 30 minutes to an hour and a half per visit. Usually, first visit is longer than like the follow-up visits. Just depends on the naturopathic doctor who you see and what they like to do. I'm going to give you a few examples of what we can uncover in that first visit based off of some cases I've taken. Because sometimes people think, oh, I got to spend more. It's not like your typical copay, etc., etc. But what you get done in a smaller amount of time versus multiple visits can be very impactful. So, first example, a guy comes to me with he has a breathing problem and depression. He's got plates in his brain and taking a certain medication just to help him breathe. He wanted to get off of the medication because there was another treatment he wanted to do with another doctor for depression that he needed to get off of this breathing medication to be able to do. He thought that the breathing issue came based off of a medication that he took for 13 months for depression. The breathing issue didn't come until within the 6 months post getting off of that medication. And this is me taking the time to take a timeline and really understand what's been going on for years, right? During that 6 months, he started another medication that has a similar profile to the medication he was thinking was the problem. He's been on that medication ever since. And so I was like, you know what? I think you need to go talk to your psychiatrist about getting off of this medication. This may be your problem. And while that sounds simple, because I'm just really summarizing for you, he hadn't thought of it that way. That can be sometimes the value of having somebody else put another set of eyes on what's been going on with your life, because you just may be missing something. And it's through how naturopathic doctors get trained to ask questions and take this timeline and take a little bit longer to figure things out that we uncover things like this. Another example was a lady who came to me with a growing body-wide rash. And this was some years into me being a doctor. And so, a lot of you probably are familiar with, if you've been doing something for a longer amount of time, you start having that sense, that sixth sense, or something about it starts to become an art. And so there was something about when I was taking her case that I was like, I think this might be drug-induced. So I look up the medication that I suspected, because I think she was only on one medication at the time. And turns out it causes not only a rash, but also it depleted potassium. She was also having a foot cramp, chronic foot cramp, and she was putting magnesium on it, and it was helping, but it wasn't going away. When she got off of this medication, that foot cramp went away. The rash went away. But the other part about that story is that she brought this to the attention of her doctor who had prescribed this medication. And she had been on this medication for years. So he was just like, no, that can't be it. This would have happened a long time ago. Being the somewhat persistent person that I am, I had her print out an article off of a very popular medical website showing that this medication causes this rash. I said, go bring that to him. She brought it back to him. He kind of softened up, I guess, if you will. Started to consider that the medication maybe have done the issue. They start talking in the office visit, and they realize this rash issue started when he went up on the medication. And I have spoken about this in the past where I've said, when you start to do things more naturally for your health, even if you can't get off the medication, you can reduce the dosage potentially, and that has value. And this is an example of why it can have value. She was fine at a lower dose. She was not fine at a higher dose. Um, another case. Lady comes to me with an autoimmune issue she's had for years, but she's having this new onset of liver enzyme elevation. I mean, they're going, quite high. So I take the case. She had not had liver enzyme elevation for years. She only had the autoimmune issue for years. The liver enzyme elevation had just started. I take the case. I find out she started these 2 new medications recently. And it's like, oh. And I'm looking up these medications. They both can cause liver damage, liver enzyme elevation. I'm like, you may want to talk to the doctors that prescribe those 2 and take a break. Get off of them. Maybe try something different. So she decides to get off the medications. But because she had an autoimmune condition, I was concerned that we needed to do more than just be off of medications. Sometimes when you have other things going on, like an autoimmune issue or some sort of chronic inflammatory state, something your body is already struggling with all the time, it can be harder to heal from certain things. And so we got to work with helping her with the autoimmune condition, as well as helping to repair her liver. During all of this time, the other doctors were doing all these tests trying to figure out where the liver enzyme elevation came from and trying to figure out potentially how much liver damage might have happened and ruling out other diagnoses. 8 months later, they finally confirmed it was drug-induced. I figured that out in an hour and a half. During this time, towards the end of the 8 months, she's feeling better. Autoimmune condition is not as severe. Her liver enzymes go back to normal. What would have potentially happened if she had to have waited to figure that out without the help of a naturopathic doctor? So the work was done over the 8 months, but the beginnings of it was in an hour and a half. Me questioning, trying to figure out what happened, taking that timeline. So sometimes doctors can figure out this narrative over the course of several visits, right? If they have shorter timelines in terms of how long they spend with their clients. Other types of doctors may or may not figure it out depending on the type of questioning that they do. If they always feel rushed, it might be harder to uncover some of these details that matter, right? So that can be the value of spending more time and investment in seeing a naturopathic doctor. What could have been going on for years might finally get resolved, or at least you have more information that now you're like, okay, instead of continuously going, all these ways, I'm gonna go that way, and that is the beginning of you getting better.